20 years ago today, the United States of America had undergone a tragedy unforeseen throughout its entire history as a nation. On this very day, 2 planes hit the World Trade Center in New York. A third hit the Pentagon, and a fourth was heading towards the White House, but brave passengers overtook the hijackers and landed in a field outside Shanksville, Pennsylvania. These attacks had cost many lives and left many injured. These attacks have also left the country in economic instability. These attacks have awoken a sleeping giant, and a fiery storm was released on those who were responsible. Many lives were lost on this very day. In New York, both attacks on the World Trade Center cost 2,763 lives. This total does not only include the passengers, but also first responders, people who worked inside the buildings, and also people who couldn't escape the collapsing towers. Many people were faced with the difficult decision to take their own life by jumping hundreds of stories up because they knew they weren't going to make it. Fortunately, that is not all that happened on this day. The attack on the Pentagon had cost 189 lives. This includes both passengers on board, military members, and civilians. Many people who were present at the Pentagon on this day swear that they didn't even consider themselves to be under attack, but were very wrong. However, this wasn't the last of the attacks. Flight 93 was on its way to the White House to give its final blow, but passengers on board heard about how they were a part of one of these major attacks and decided to take back control of the plane. So they fought the hijackers and landed in a field outside Pennsylvania. So the attacks had cost 40 lives, but by their act of bravery, more lives were not in danger. The attacks from 9/11 had also resulted in an economic disaster. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, New York had lost over 430,000 jobs and $2.8 billion in lost wages over 3 months following the attacks. Additionally, tourism had plummeted, which had employed a sector of 280,000 people and generated $25 billion per year. As you can see, the results of these attacks have lasted over months and years following this day. People were already hurting from losing loved ones, but were now facing unemployment and had no way to generate an income. America had fallen onto its knees. Many people were not sure if these attacks were planned and where they would take place. People were also facing challenges of whether to move away from family in order to find work. This was a devastating time in America, but rage was building, and people were ready to hold others accountable. Many people were not sure if America would recover from these events, but the United States is the best country in the world. We have our flaws, but we all come together at a time in need. At this point, we wanted to make sure that these attacks never take place in America again, as well as other countries. So, we declared war in Afghanistan and destroyed militia groups that planned these events. Bin Laden, one of the major brains behind these attacks, was killed 9 years later by a Navy special force. Although 2 decades have gone by, Americans still stand strong and fight to prevent this very tragedy from ever happening again. We have kept the world a safer place and minimized the size of terrorist organizations. We have done our part and have honored the lives that were lost on 9/11 and those who have died fighting in the long-going war. The United States has been through hell and back. We've seen the darkest moments and even the brightest. Even in the worst times, we as Americans work together to achieve the impossible. After these events that happened on September 11th, many were not sure if we would ever recover, but they were very wrong. We become stronger, smarter, and more powerful. But there is one thing for sure: we will never forget what happened on this day. We will always remember those who lost their lives and pray for those still feeling the effects to this day. America will never